Let's subtract the fractions 11/12 minus 1/2 and simplify the result. In order to subtract these two fractions, our rule on the right tells us that if we have two fractions we're subtracting with common denominator c, that we would subtract the numerators and write that over the common denominator. The problem we face is that both denominators are not the same thing. They're not common denominators. So our first goal will be to convert both of these fractions to the same common denominator so that we can use our rule. The next question that arises is, what is the common denominator? So we'd like to write two fractions that will have the same denominators so we can use our rule. Well, to find the common denominator, we'll write the multiples of each denominator. A multiple is each sequential number added onto itself. So for example, with 12, the first multiple is 12. If we continue on adding 12, the next multiple would be 24. Adding again would become 36, then 48, then 60, and so on. The multiple of 2, our first multiple is 2, and if we add another 2 to that, we'd get 4. Adding 2 again, we'd get 6, and 8, and 10, and 12, 14, 16, and so on. So our common denominator is the first number that appears in each list, our lowest multiple, the lowest common multiple. And we see that that would be 12 in both cases. That tells us that our common denominator should be 12. So our next goal is to convert each one of these two fractions to a new fraction where the denominator is 12. Our first fraction is already done. It already has a common denominator of 12, so we won't change it. However, 1/2 we should change, and so we'd like to write 1/2 as an equivalent fraction with 12 as the denominator. How to do it? 2 multiplied by what would give us 12? Well, that what would be 6. And since we're multiplying the bottom of a fraction by 6, we'll also multiply the top by 6. So 1 times 6 becomes 6. 1/2 has an equivalent fraction of 6/12. We now see that we have a common denominator of 12. Our rule now tells us that if we have common denominators, to subtract the numerators and write that over the common denominator. That said, 11/12 minus 6/12 becomes 11 minus 6 all over 12. Well, simplifying this, 11 minus 6 becomes 5/12. So our final answer is 5/12.